Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is squish. This verb was another suggestion from the viewer Zia, and so I just want to say a quick thank you for this interesting suggestion. Now, let's take a moment to look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first way you are likely to hear squish used is to mean to squeeze something together, or maybe to crush something together, or to really press something into a flat shape. A second and very much related way we use this verb squish is to yield or to cause something to yield easily to pressure. Now, I know the wording of this second definition might be a little difficult to understand, so I have a prop to kind of help us with that idea of yielding to pressure. So I'm holding a yellow ball, right? And if I press on it, right, the sides kind of push in, they yield to the pressure of my hand. So that's what is meant by that second definition. A third way you hear squish used is to mean to make a gurgling or sucking sound when walking on soft ground. So, for this third definition, it might be easiest to kind of envision walking in mud. And I'm really not good at sound effects, but kind of that kind of that sound, that sucking or gurgling sound, depending on maybe how wet and what type of shoes you're wearing. You should know that squish is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing to form squishing. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by adding the letters ed. Our base verb, squish, ends in an unvoiced sh sound or a sh sound. This means that our ed ending is going to make a t sound as we say it. So it should sound like this: squished, squished. Okay. Now I have one additional phrasal verb for us to look at, and that is to squish out. When that gets used, many times people are talking about killing something, and generally we're often talking about insects and bugs or other sort of unwanted creatures. So an example of this might be they squished out all the bugs that had crawled through the hole. So perhaps they're in someone's home and we're talking about maybe stepping on them in order to kill them. Let's continue practicing our verb of the day in a couple different verb tenses. Today we'll practice the present progressive and the simple future. Let's start with the present progressive. Many times you might hear this called the present continuous, but you should know both of these mean the same thing. What we're talking about with this verb tense is describing actions that are happening now or actions that are in progress during a particular time period. I like calling this the present progressive because the two P's in the title help me remember I need two parts to make my verb. What I need is a present form of be, and that form will change based on what my subject is. So if my subject is I'll use am. If my subject is you, we, or they, I'll use are. And if my subject is he, she, or it, I'll use is. Okay, so first part, present form of be, and then my second part is going to be that ing form of the verb. Okay, let's take a look at an affirmative example. I want us for this example to sort of picture maybe kids in the back seat of a car, right? And perhaps they're goofing around a little bit and pressing up maybe against one of their siblings. And so somebody says, Mom, they're squishing me, right? So it's that idea of kind of squeezing. There's lots of pressure here that maybe makes them feel like they're being flattened. Now, if you want to make a negative present progressive sentence, again, we start with our subject and we use the form of be that matches. Then you'll see not, then the ing form of the verb. Here's another example. We aren't squishing any amphibians as we're walking through the bog. Okay. So here, someone's probably say, like, we're not hurting or we're not killing anything by walking through this muddy area. Finally, we can make a yes or no question in the present progressive. To do this, we start with a present form of be, whichever form matches our subject, and the subject comes next. Then we use the ing form of the verb. Here's another example. Is the company squishing out all forms of harassment? So again, squishing out here would be like to kill, to get rid of. So here we might be talking about their policies, their actions to try and stop any type or any form of harassment. Now let's take a look at the simple future. Today we're going to focus on using will. Will is really common when people are making predictions about something that will happen in the future. You'll also hear it as people talk about promises. Not as common to hear about it with plans, but possibly, especially when there hasn't been a lot of planning, it's kind of a quick decision, then you might hear will. The nice thing about will is, or you're using will in the simple future, is that our structure is going to be the same no matter what our subject is. So in the affirmative, we'll have our subject, we'll use will, and then we'll use the base verb. Here's an example sentence. A ripe mango will squish slightly under your touch. Okay. So this sentence was from an article kind of talking about how to select the best type or the most ripe fruits and vegetables. And so this sentence is kind of giving advice of how you might select a mango in the future. And so it's that idea, right, of you're going to be able to kind of press in just a little bit with the mango. To make a negative simple future sentence, what you see is the subject, then will not, and then the base verb. Sometimes instead of will not, you'll hear the contraction won't. You can see that in my example here. The snacks won't squish or turn to crumbs when they're packed in your child's lunches. Okay. So this sentence was offered a bit as a promise a company was making, suggesting that their food, it won't be pressed, it won't be smashed, it might not look weird or be difficult to eat. So we can very much see this as, again, being a promise for the future. Finally, if you want to make a yes or no question in the simple future, start with will, then use your subject, then the base verb. You can see that in my example. Will you squish the bugs? Right? So here someone might be asking, can you step on, can you press them and kill them? Now, let's take a moment to look at a couple related words. And the first word we're going to discuss is just the noun form of this word. So, same spelling, same pronunciation. Many times when this noun form of the word is used, someone is referring to the sound people make when they walk on wet, muddy, maybe soggy ground, right? So it's kind of that combination of water plus our shoes that many times result in a particular noise. So an example of this might be, the squish of the hikers trekking through the muddy trail could be heard from a quarter-mile away. So maybe we have a really, really muddy area. Maybe there are lots of hikers in this particular group, and the sound their shoes are making as they lift their feet and hike are kind of making this, it sounds like a really loud sound from this sentence. Another related word you might encounter is the adjective squishy. So when this noun gets, or sorry, when the adjective form gets used, many times people are trying to describe something that is soft or something that is not firm, right? Something, again, another word from earlier, something that is yielding. And or it could also be damp, a little wet. So an example of this, maybe someone is asking, is this banana too squishy? Right? So we might imagine something getting kind of dark yellow to brown. That type of banana is going to be very soft. It might, for some people, might be too ripe to eat. Others really enjoy that or really enjoy cooking with them. But here, again, we're kind of talking about that idea that we can kind of really press into something pretty easily without much strength or without much force. Thanks again to the viewer Zia for this suggestion. I appreciate you all watching, and I hope you have a great day.